Welcome back.
No, thank you, Palisa, and I'm glad to be back too.
On Tuesday's show, we did touch base on the foundation that you started, Ndileka Mandela Foundation, modelled after your father. And basically, we did focus on how it enhances education in those rural areas. But now I want to take this conversation a step further. I want to focus on your youth development programs and what they set out to do.
Well, we have different programs. One of the programs that we are going to start, putting into action is where we look for youth that is unemployed and train them as artisans like electricians, plumbers. But not only that, because we have learned that from the learnerships, the failure of the learnerships, because learnerships took an unemployed person, put them, train them, but did not give them employment. So we're going to partner with business to say that if when we train a certain number of electricians, can you just have a take-off of that? Because there's a program that we're starting with one of the embassies that is looking at capacitating youth in that manner because we need to create jobs.
If we were to just turn our attention then on you, your life's journey, I mean the trials and tribulations that you've had to overcome. A lot of people could assume that you've had an easy life and might be shocked to find out the realities of it. So can you just speak to us about how you've always been able to rise to the top, or seemingly in our eyes?
Well, it's because mainly my grandmother, Evelyn, taught us how to... She used to drum this into our head. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What's important is how many times you get up after you fall. So I've watched my grandmother, from a nurse when she learned to be a savvy businesswoman. This is now way before women owned businesses. I mean, this is a woman that owned business in the 1970s in the Eastern Cape and ran that business successfully. So she's the one that taught me the coping skills and also to develop a rhino skin. Because a lot of things are going to be said about my family, and I need to have that thick skin of saying, well, you know what? I did not kill anyone. I can get up in the morning and hold my head high.
Absolutely, with the amount of strength, dignity, and absolute grace that you do so. It almost seems effortless from the way where we're sitting, essentially. But in the book, you decided to put pen to paper. I believe that there's no one better to tell one story than themselves. Here enters I Am Ndileka, more than my surname. Your friends, your families were saying, "Ay phela, write a book, share your experiences." So what started the journey of actually jotting it all down?
Well, I'd been toying around with it for a while, and it was when one of Granddad's book was being launched by the Nelson Mandela Foundation, and a friend of mine said, "This is it. You've been promising to write this book for a long time. So here's a publisher. Go speak to them." And that's how the journey started. And initially, when I sat with this lady, she said to me, "What do you want to talk about in the book?" And I just basically told her that I want to talk about my struggles, about my father and my grandmother. And I said, okay, here's the outline, go write.
Wow.
And I mean, for the first 3 months, I was flowing until I reached parts of my life that were very painful, and I had to dig deep. And I stopped writing, I think, for about 6 months. I didn't write. Wow. Until she then sent me a said, "Oh, by the way, you remember our deadline? Your first draft is supposed to be ready." I used to type the whole night and just sit on my computer and type because I'm much more of a night person. So my creative juices come at night. So
I love the fact that she held you accountable, though.
Yeah, she did.
It's not easy, especially having to relive some of the painful, dark memories that a lot of people try skim the surface of and almost try forget, bury it deep in your subconscious. But let's talk about it. Now is the time. There was a time where you were homeless.
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yes, and the thing is, oftentimes people think that when you're homeless, you are literally in the street.
Yeah.
My reference in being homeless is that I did not have a permanent address because I had to lock up my stuff, put them in storage because of poor planning on my side. And I had to move from one place to another. We'll stay a week in this place with my children and move to the other place. It was horrible because, my children were displaced. I remember one time my daughter was worried, at the time she was taking a gap year and she was worried what's going to become of them. And I sat them down. I said, "I've never let you down." And even this time around, by December, will have a permanent home. And lo and behold, because I believe in a God, in a living God. And by December 2012, we had a permanent place where we're staying to this day.
I can just touch base on the hashtag #MeToo movement that we see going around. We also see a very huge move finally against anti-GBV here in South Africa. I mean, we really are rallying together. You too detail a very sensitive, painful experience of your own in your book. I mean, number one, Mama, would you be comfortable to share it with the hopes ukuthi someone out there watching right now will also have the courage to share their own story?
You know how I shared that story, Palisa? It was a conversation during the #MeToo campaign where a friend of mine, a gentleman friend of mine, had sent me a text via WhatsApp to say it was a Daniel Dunn story, during 2010. And my response to him was what made me come out 5 years later. Because when I responded, I said, what do you mean? Because his subtext was, what was this woman thinking inviting a man into her room? I had steam coming out of my every orifice, a pore in my body. I said, what do you mean? I said, do you know that a husband can rape a wife? And he said, well, it means husbands will have to carry consent forms so that a woman cannot run and say, I've been raped. If he was close to me, I would have strangled him.
I'm telling you.
I said, this is why women do not talk about rape. And I then told him my story that, I remember, the thing is, Palisa, sometimes we need to listen to our instincts, because when my then boyfriend came to my house that night, because our complex was such that you have to buzz at the gate and I have to let you in. My first instinct was to say, don't open it for him. But I never listened to it. I opened the gate and he came, and I remember I had been going through emotional stuff and I decided to abstain from sex. And when he came, he started touching me. I said, look, I'm not in the mood. No, not today. And he just kept on pushing and pushing. It is only when I started crying uncontrollably that he said, okay, he stopped. He then, and the amazing thing is that he then would try and touch me, and at that point I was absolutely hysterical. I was almost to the point of screaming, but because my son was downstairs at the time. And I remember following day, I called my friend, and I did the one thing that you shouldn't do when you've been sexually molested, is to go take a shower. And I went to take a shower, and I just said, look, I need, and he kept on calling and calling. And the reason I came out was because of this man. I took to social media, I took to my Facebook page and started talking about it. And the amount of women that came out to say, actually, a similar thing happened to me.
We need to change the narrative.
Yeah.
We need to be able to now not only blame the woman and have a man a victim and say, should he carry a consent form? We should be able to hold them responsible for their actions in these moments. And I salute you, Mama, and I say thank you so much for sharing your story. Because it takes moments like this for us to be able to support Umama and anyone that you know, be able to pick up the phone, reach out to a loved one, seek the guidance and the help and the therapy that you need. Mama, yours was writing.
Yes, mine was writing, but also, what I did not touch on in the book, which I hope to have in the second edition, is that the one thing that you need to do, because there's been a lot of women that are coming out recently,
yes,
to say that I've been molested. The one thing that you must do as a woman, if you're sexually molested or raped, go do a rape kit. What you decide to do with it, it's up to you, because rape has no statute of limitation. If you decide 10 years later to prosecute, then you do have a rape kit. And make sure that, because police records disappear, when you make that police statement, make sure that you keep a record of it on your own, so that when you decide to prosecute later on, you have evidence that the rape did happen. Because most of the times, women that have been coming out against personalities that we know in South Africa, yes, have lost their cases because they did not have a rape kit. And that they've lost their case, it does not mean that the rape did not happen.
Absolutely. To all of our viewers at home who you believe need to pick up this book, what can they expect to enjoy?
Well, it's how I grew up, literally. I mean, I had a very beautiful childhood. I mean, especially when we moved to the Eastern Cape, I had the days where childhood was safe. It was safe to go and play until it's very dark outside. It was safe to to walk distances to school, because when I did grade 5, I used to walk, I mean, maybe an hour, and nobody would worry where I am or that somebody will pick me up on the road and traffic me. So we lived during those days, and I had it was only when my partner said to me, do you know that you're a privilege? I said, what do you mean? He said, you were flying at the age of 10, Ndileka, seriously?
Wow.
And I would fly with my sister from the Eastern Cape to Cape Town, because my maternal grandmother, Oma, lived in Retreat. So we used to come and visit Oma, and also when I started visiting Granddad. So, I mean, it's those highs and lows. I mean, the fact that my mother committed suicide, for instance, which was a very dark time in my life. It was a painful time in my life. They can expect how we ended up in court in 2013 when my grandfather was sick. With the grave story, so because I go into detail of why that happened, because in the general public, they all know that, you know, this family does not get along. Why couldn't they resolve things amicably? There's a reason why we ended up in court.
And it is all detailed in this incredible book. Now, not only has Ndileka been gracious to share all of her stories in this book, but she's also giving 3 lucky viewers an opportunity to walk away with their very own copy. So this is a big deal.
It is, it is. I mean, for me, I hope they can extrapolate more than the hardships that I went through. I'm still standing.
Wow. In celebration of Mandela Month, we can all agree that this book is a must-have. So we're giving 3 lucky viewers an opportunity to win themselves a copy of Ndileka's book. All you need to do is answer the simple competition question. Mandela Month is all about giving back. So what's a small act of kindness you'll be doing this month? Share your answers on the Afternoon Express Facebook page. T's and C's can be found on afternoonexpress.co.za. The competition closes at 12 p.m. on Monday, the 19th of July.